Hi guys, how's it going? Ivano here, and if you have watched my channel for a while, then you will know that I like to focus on damage and farm a lot of damage. But some players have asked me, why don't you focus more on the objectives? Why do you always deathmatch? So today I'm going to argue that getting high DPS is the single most important thing in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Some might even say in life, but that's a different topic. And I will give 3 reasons for that, and the first one will be that the team with a higher DPS will usually win more games. Reason for that is quite obvious. More damage means more kills, and some maps directly give you points for kills, such as Hypergate for example. But then more damage also makes it easier to capture objectives. Of course, it's much easier to capture a turret if the enemies are all dead, compared to if there are 6 defenders and you have to try to ninja it somehow. Of course, having the better DPS on your team doesn't mean that you will win all of the games. Exceptions include the enemy having players staying in stealth the whole time and only playing to defend. Or if one team has 2 tanks and healers and the other team for some reason has no support classes at all. And then of course there's Hardball, which kind of has its own rules. And of course, if one team is only focused on damage farming and leaves the objectives completely undefended, then that team will most likely still lose. But in general, if you have superior damage on your team and play the objectives a little bit, you will win more than you will lose. And this is true, especially in this meta, where one good DPS can sometimes do more than healers can output. But reason number 2, and this is probably even more important, is that improving your DPS forces you to become a better player overall. Because to do really maximum DPS, you need to know a lot of things, such as you need to have very good knowledge of the class that you play, but then also your opponent's classes. You need to know, how to properly move your character, when to fight, when to retreat, how to kite or avoid getting kited, using line of sight and so on, how to use your cooldowns. You need to know, of course, all the maps, and then based off that, trying to anticipate where your opponents will move and being in the right place at the right time kind of thing. And then in the fight, using every global cooldown, maximizing your APM, etc, etc. So there are many things to learn in order to maximize your DPS. And while it can be hard to measure whether, let's say, your movement was good or bad in a certain match, you can measure your DPS at the end of the game. And that's really important, because the best way to track your progress is to measure some data that you can quantify. Because if you say, oh, I feel like my movement or my target selection was much better this game compared to the last game, that doesn't really mean anything. It's completely subjective. It's just a feeling. And this is PvP. No one cares about your feelings. What matters is the scoreboard at the end of the round. Did you hit 10k DPS this game compared to 9k in the last round? Well, then this round was better than the last. Now, of course, you cannot control all the factors that go into your DPS output in a given game. Maybe you did more DPS simply because you played against worse opponents. Maybe you did more DPS because you didn't get CC'd as much as the round before. But if you look at your DPS numbers over a long enough period of time, and you track your average DPS over a number of games, then these random effects will get smoothed out, and you can track whether you are in fact improving as a player. So this is why I recommend everyone who wants to get better at PvP to simply write down the DPS numbers in a spreadsheet after each game and track them over a month or so. I've done this when I started playing again after my long break, and I found that it worked really well for me. And the next point is kind of related to the previous one, and that is that becoming a better DPS player also makes you a better healer and tank. So even though I never really played healer for more than a day, tomorrow I can jump on my Merc and do 25k HPS in a good game without a problem. And that's because many of the skills that you need to develop for being a good DPS transfer over to being a healer or a competent tank. Although there's a slight caveat on tanks because of the whole usage of taunts, guard, peeling NCC, which is another set of skills that you don't really learn just by farming max DPS. So while DPS farming is not the only thing that matters, it will make you a better player overall. And last but not least, this is a video game, so I would recommend that you play the game to have fun. Now, is it fun to stay in stealth, refusing to fight, and only right-click on the blue thingies once every minute before hiding in stealth again? I don't know, maybe that's fun for some people, but at least in my opinion, it's much more fun to actually fight. You know, hit a perfect AoE into 6 people, or absolutely one-shot other players. At least in my opinion, maximizing your DPS will also maximize your fun. That's it for today. If you want to learn how to do more DPS, I have many videos for new and returning players on the channel. More are also coming out soon. So make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe so you don't miss them. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.